Have you ever broken up with a girl and you're just really down, super depressed, and suddenly an alien ship crashes into your backyard and an alien girl from another planet moves in with you? No? Well, this webtoon by Pookie Senpai is one that caught my attention for being different than from other webtoons like it. The story focuses on Cade, who is recently dumped by his girlfriend. He works at a retail job, and he seems rather expressionless and unapproachable at times. Zeta is an alien from the planet Zodiac, and she ran away from her homeworld after stealing a ship. Cade, realizing Zeta has nowhere to go, lets her live with him. Though, there are rules. 1. Contribute. 2. Trust. And 3. No feelings. If they can follow these rules, life living with an alien may be easier than expected. This is down to earth. Real quick though, this channel is less than 120 subs away from getting to 1K subs, and YouTube says 90% of you watching this video now are unsubscribed, so if you can help me out, simply subscribe and ring the bell. Now, let's get into the video. So first off, this webtoon currently has 28 episodes out. Not an ideal first impressions, but just treat it as a more informed version of a first impressions. With that, this webtoon is really interesting to me, simply because I haven't read a webtoon quite like this before. I've read webtoons like Unordinary, Bastard, Mom I'm Sorry, etc., but this webtoon I found to be the most interesting. It's essentially just about a guy living with an alien. Cade recently got dumped, and the arrival of Zeta really puts a wrench into things. Instead of feeling down in the dumps, which I'm sure he still does, he has to focus more on providing for himself and now Zeta. So things like improving in his job, which also means improving as a person to be more approachable. It's things like this which make Cade just a tad bit more interesting, and as the story progresses you learn more things about him and how the simplest things like a tattoo or a piercing has a pretty important story attached to them, one that defines certain moments in Cade's life. Anytime there is a moment where Cade is the focus of an episode or scene, I always leave much more interested in this character. He's not the deepest of characters, but I would say his character is very relatable to you and me. He works a job he doesn't like, he spends all of his time growing with this other person, emulating them in some ways to just be dumped, and for him to feel like all that time may have been wasted. Cade is much more human and doesn't feel like a character in a webtoon I'm reading. Not to say there are a bunch of those out there. A lot of webtoons are very well done and have a lot of hard work put into them. But I do think it's worth mentioning here that Cade is a really well thought out character. Then we have Zeta, who serves as a multitude of porpoises, like being a lighthearted character or being an alien from another planet trying to get accustomed to living like a human. Much like Cade, Zeta is a really fascinating and interesting character. She also has her own secrets, and as the story develops, you'll come to find she's got much more depth to her than you'd initially think. One of the mysteries of Zeta's character is her homeworld, Zodiac. You get tidbits and little pieces about it here and there, which are told to the reader in interesting and fun ways. For example, Zeta's sleepwear is basically this super revealing and small clothing, and if they get cold, they basically just wear this knitted sweater straight out of SpongeBob. But we also learn that Zodians aren't exactly like humans despite their looks either. They can read people's minds by simply touching their heads and hands together. This is how Zeta actually learns English directly from Cade's brain. This leads to a fun aspect about Zeta. She's really mediocre at speaking English, but then again, it's my first language and I talk like it's my third, so I can understand. But the way she speaks, I would honestly compare to like a Starfire from Teen Titans. And really, I think that's a fairly apt comparison in that regard, because at least in my mind, I read her voice as Starfire's voice anyways. The way she reacts to things is super cute as well. She always seems to be so eager to learn something new about the human race. And oh my, does she love the food. She's always happy when Cade cooks for her, and her eyes glow up like galaxies. Oh man, it's adorable. She's really just one of those precious characters that you can't help but not to love. And I think another moment that kind of proves that is early on when she's picking up Cade's game console, and he tells her to put it down because he tells her it's his precious child. So she puts the console Bento down softly and calls it a precious child as she's doing so. I think she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Cade's precious child." It was a great line. There are plenty of Zeta and Cade moments where you just can't help but giggle or chuckle at. As for the story itself, it's going in interesting directions. It's obviously a romance of some sort, though this could be blatantly displayed on the homepage for it, but I haven't actually been paying attention to the genre itself. I'm just kind of been focusing on reading it. But the pairing of Cade and Zeta is a really easy one to do, though Pookie-senpai is being really smart with this and isn't going directly into the romance from the very beginning. As of chapter 28, it's something being worked towards, but not at the expense of Zeta and Cade's backstory and character development. This is something I greatly appreciate in a story, especially a romance, that they don't go directly into something like that immediately. Plus, I think that there are interesting stories to tell before we get there, or as we develop it slowly. Cade still has a lot to his character that needs to develop before he can simply just jump into another relationship. As well, Zeta is pretty new to Earth still, and it would be odd to not get some more info about why she ran away from Zodia and what her intentions were with doing so. And yeah, like I said before, it's obvious they're taking this slow burn approach because recently they just introduced Cade's ex, which leads to the potential of having much more layers to Cade's character. Most failed relationships are ways to learn and grow, and it does suck when they fail, but the important part to a failed relationship is that after it's over completely and you can look back on it, you may find you'll not do some of those things you did before in that previous relationship, or that you'll know how to spot red flags. Cade definitely does have that vibe going on with him, and I can't wait to see more of that development for him. Overall, I think Down to Earth will develop into a mighty fine series, as it's already showing that Pookie-senpai can create such a thing so early on in the story. I am fascinated by the characters here. They're full of potential to be developed into pretty memorable characters. I think if you're looking for a romance or something different on Webtoons right now, then give this series a shot. I think you might enjoy it. If not for its characters, then at least for the lighthearted fun this series can bring you. I give Down to Earth a 100% recommendation. So thank you all for watching this video. I do greatly appreciate it. I don't know what I'll do next week. I'll probably announce it on Twitter on my Twitter at CTacticsYT. As well, I'll probably post something about it maybe on my community tab on my main channel at youtube.com/CTactics. You can find me there as well. I guess, subscribe to this channel. We're almost at 1K subs, which is going to be a pretty huge milestone for this channel. And I think shortly after I'll be able to apply for the YouTube Partner Program, and then eventually, probably 8 years from now, I'll finally be able to monetize this channel. But yeah, that would be great if you could just help me get to 1K subs, because at 1K subs, I get the community tab, and the community tab is a very important feature for me. It's something I use all the time. I'll be able to announce videos days before they come out, what I'm planning, the schedule, memes, GIFs, things of that nature. Maybe some things I noticed about some things. I don't know. I love the community tab. It's one of my favorite things to do on my main channel, and I would love to have one on this channel. As well, I have a Teespring, I have a Patreon. I got those places you can support me, and as well, you can just simply support me by giving this video a like, subscribe and ringing the bell. But actually, most importantly, I didn't say this first, but comment down below what you think about Down to Earth. Almost nobody I know reads this, and it's got almost 1 million followers on Webtoons, so I just really want to hear your thoughts on the overall series and what you think about it. So thank you all for watching the video, greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next week with a surprise Webtoon I'll be covering. Bye bye.